Hi, my name is Jan Sullivan, and I'm the District 5810 Polio Plus Chair. It is an exciting time to be a member of Rotary International and a contributor to the Rotary Foundation, especially for Polio Plus. I'm going to start out with just a brief history of polio and then take you where we are today in our fight to eradicate polio. The first outbreak that was recorded for polio was in 1894 in Vermont. As you can see, there were 18 deaths and 132 cases of permanent paralysis. By 1929, it had become endemic. This is a room full of children in iron lungs. Row after row after row. Polio is a paralytic disease. It paralyzes the muscles in your body. And in order for these children to breathe when their chest muscles became diseased, they had to be put in iron lungs. Today, there are very, very few people in the world living in an iron lung. There are less than a handful. But one of those people happens to be Paul Alexander here in Dallas, Texas. Paul has also been a Rotarian. He is also an attorney, a man with a great sense of humor, and a wonderful will to live. He was diagnosed in 1952 with polio at the age of 6. His life changed forever. But he did continue on with his life, managed to graduate from not only high school, college, he went on to SMU School of Law and has been a practicing attorney all these years. In 1955, Dr. Jonas Salk developed the vaccine that would change the history of the world as far as polio was concerned. 1960, Dr. Albert Sabin came up with an oral polio vaccine. Many of you of a certain age, my age anyway, will remember being vaccinated, eating a small sugar cube that they dropped the drops into for us to take. Nowadays, the children just receive 2 drops on their tongues. They start at 2 months of age and get their drops early in life to prevent this disease. In 1979, Rotary International began its fight against polio with a multi-year project to immunize 6 million children in the Philippines. By this time, polio was about gone in our half of the hemisphere. But the Philippines found through the dedication of their Rotarians that they thought they could do this. Philippines is an island. They thought they could control the distribution, and with having a population that was stable to the country, they could get this done. And they did. In 1985, with the success of the polio drive in the Philippines, Rotary International took this on as an international project with an initial funding of $120 million. And at that time, there were 350,000 polio cases in 125 countries. In 1988, the Rotary International and the World Health Organization launched the Global Polio Eradication Initiative. And like I said, there were 350,000 cases a year happening at that point in time. By 1994, the entire hemisphere that we live in was eradicated from polio. Both North and South America had no normal polio. By 2000, a record 550 million children, almost 10% of the world's population, had received the polio oral vaccine. The Western Pacific region, spanning from Australia to China, is declared polio-free. Think about that. The number of people that live in China, and they were declared polio-free. By 2003, the Rotary Foundation had raised another $119 million in a 12-month campaign. By then, Rotary's total contribution to polio eradication had succeeded $500 million. In 2003, there were 6 countries that were polio endemic: Afghanistan, Egypt, India, Nigeria, and Pakistan. In 2004, Africa started a program where in 23 countries they were going to vaccinate 80 million children, the largest coordinated polio immunization effort on the continent. In 2009, the Rotarians had already given $800 million. In 2009, Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation entered the Global Polio Eradication Initiative and pledged $355 million and issued Rotary a challenge grant of $200 million. So this announcement resulted in a combined $555 million to eradicate polio. This was my favorite campaign. In 2011, everybody was saying we are this close to eradicating polio. And we were, and we are. And by then, Rotary's funding had exceeded $1 billion. In 2012, India, a country that they thought would never be free of polio, had gone a year without polio. To be considered free of polio, you have to go 3 years without the wild polio virus. Rotary once again surpassed a $200 million challenge fund, and they did it faster than ever in 5 months. In 2014, we were literally this close. 99% of the world was polio free. Today, the last recorded type of type 2 polio was last reported in 1909 and declared eradicated in 2015. Type 3 was last reported in November 2012. And as of actually November, just the last data I received last week, Pakistan had 1 case this year. There were 84 last year. Afghanistan has had 1 case. There were 56 last year. These were both in January. It is now November. We have gone almost a year with no cases of polio. Nigeria and the continent of Africa were declared polio-free last summer. There's another type of polio out there called vaccine-derived polio. There were 946 cases. So far this year, it's actually up to about 450. This comes from the fact that the vaccine, when given, is taken into our digestive systems and excreted. And because this vaccine lives in water, it's waterborne and fecal-borne, it is then transmitted to people who use unsanitized water. So this is another serious thing that we also know we do in Rotary is hygiene and sanitation. And this is another reason that is all so important, is to stop disease spread. But the virus enters the water systems and mutates. People get it, and so they get this secondary type of polio that is still very serious. But we have now changed the vaccine that we're giving, and that vaccine now is not live. So it's changed how it is excreted into the water systems. And we've seen this huge decrease in the number of vaccine-derived cases. The new vaccine that they're using now is more expensive. And because we have so fewer cases, they can now justify spending the money on the more expensive vaccine to stop these 2 types of polio. Now I want to talk about the plus in Polio Plus. You have to realize there's more to just giving out vaccines. When the mostly women go out into the villages to give these vaccines to the children, they hold educational seminars for the mothers on hygiene, personal care, sanitation. They give away malaria nets. They talk to the neighborhoods about putting in toilets to control where people use the bathroom instead of in their water systems. So much more is going on when these people go out to serve their communities. It's an amazing thing. Back when we had the Ebola outbreak, they used the system that we had put in place for polio immunizations to treat people in the African nations to prevent the spread of Ebola. These days, we're worried about finishing this. As the Taliban took control of Afghanistan, there was grave concern that our fight to end polio would be over in Afghanistan. But the Taliban has promised, and following through, that they will allow the polio vaccinations to continue in Afghanistan to rid that country of this crippling disease. I thank you for your time. We thank you for your energy. The biggest thing we can do for polio right now is to continue the fight by financial giving. And you can do that by a monthly donation to the Rotary Foundation Polio Plus, a one-time donation to the Foundation for Polio Plus, and getting your clubs excited about knowing that in our lifetime, a fight we started in 1985 will be over. They're praying that will end in 2026 with a world free of polio. Thank you for your time.